Cool. Let's see what we got today. Let's see. Tiny rendering, how software rendering in 500 lines of code. I might want to read that. Faircoin, I don't care about that. Solution engineers, vibe, mood, type polymorphic functions. Interesting. Yeah, there's not really much. Guess today's a slow day in news, I guess. Oh, NSA Kubernetes hardening guide. Okay, that's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not into it, but like I can see why people might want to. Oof. Vimeo is telling creators to suddenly pay thousands of dollars or leave the platform. What? Like, who the heck, like, still creates things on Vimeo? But, alright. Patreon itself didn't offer video hosting, and YouTube didn't have the same features to protect her work. Okay, so paying $200 a year to host video on Vimeo with some protection, and then her bandwidth user was top 1%, $3,500 a year. Wow. We have to upgrade her content, decrease her bandwidth, or live Vimeo. Pay up or get off our platform. So, interesting. Okay, ultimately is Vimeo is shifting focus towards corporate clients and then abandoning its own user base. Interesting. Vimeo is holding our Patreon catalog hostage. Ooh. Oh wow. Yeah. This, I mean, I understand what they're going for, but like, if you think about it, it's incredibly asymmetric. So, for instance, for like top 1% of bandwidth users, it's still not enough on a content creator basis to be able to do anything about it. Hey, Justin, what's up? So if you think about it, like, if you think about like say something like Twitch, right? I don't remember what the statistic is, but like the top 1% make 40% of the revenue. And even at the bottom tier of the 1%, you're barely making minimum wage. So if you put it in that respect, yeah, it's like top 1% again, like 80% of the revenue, actually. I don't remember the number. But the point is that even if you're at the bottom of that 1%, you're still barely making minimum wage. So being hit with like a $3,500 fee is really fucking sucks. So, and not to mention, like Vimeo, like, I understand where they're coming with it, but I think they just have the number distribution just wrong. Even if you're at the top 1%, you still don't make enough money to subsidize or basically qualify for that to be able to pay that. It really kind of sucks. I think that's kind of the bottom line here is that Vimeo just can't do it. And I think creators can't do it. So it's like if they're a B2B solution, then they're basically they're going to kick off all their indie creators. So this kind of makes sense. But I think it's a really shitty situation. Yeah, Patreon has encouraged the use of Vimeo as a hosting site, and Vimeo has often created a small discount for Patreon creators. Yeah, so they can literally just turn around and just stab them back like, nope, nope, we changed our mind. We're gonna go to some other content, like business to business, and now we're gonna say, hey, yeah, well, too bad, pay more, or we reject, or we like get you off the platform. It's not a great situation. Then again, I don't know if people have a choice. That's also the problem. I think on a, if you think about it like from revenue point of view, it's like Vimeo is making the right decision. It's like, hey, you have 10 years of content on our platform. Pay up or lose it. It's holding it hostage. It's really shitty, but it's like there's like no one really can do much about it. Amazon Prime dark patterns are known and intentional. Okay, let's see what the dark patterns they're using are. Trick people into signing up for Prime subscriptions. We have been deliberately confusing. Ah. Word for years that trick customers into signing up for Prime subscriptions. Feel manipulated into signing up for Prime. Yeah. Yeah. So like if you click on, hey, I want free 2-day delivery, you get automatically enrolled in the free trial and then automatically converted until the last user cancels it. Yeah, it's basically a lot of these subscriptions that you go through, just straight up like use these dark patterns where it's just like, hey, yeah, we're gonna automatically sign you up for these things, right? And then you basically are stuck paying a subscription until you cancel it. And I mean, I've had my own fair share of experiences with subscription services that do this. In fact, I remember there's this one company that I used to buy make one purchase, like for some video content hosted by another content creator, right? These were like some thumbnails and video presets. And so what ended up happening was that the company ended up charging me an annual subscription. And I'm like, why? I called them up, I emailed them, and it's like, hey, I don't know where the subscription is coming from, but you guys charged me. And they charged me again. And it's like, hey, can you guys do something about this? I don't know what account you charged it to, and I don't have a record of the account. And they couldn't find the account either. All they know is that they charged me. And so, they fortunately, after like basically 2-3 weeks of headaches, they finally canceled the payment for one of the years. But then I'm like, how do I prevent this from happening again? And they haven't responded to me since. So honestly, it's just like shit like this is really fucking annoying. So I would say like any company that relies on like some subscription model like this, I'd be very, very aware of. I'd be very afraid of. I mean, it's really fucking annoying. I still think, despite all this shit, I still think Prime is a good deal for most people. 2-day shipping, I still think it's a very good deal regardless. But the practice is just fucking shitty. I mean, to be fair, every single business has like some shitty practice one way or the other. Even Apple, like one of the companies that I like lather a shit ton of praise on, like they still have like some questionable practices as well. Like even Coke, like way back in the day, it's like one of the reasons why they were able to survive like World War II and sugar rationing was because they would literally put on the board of sugar rationing itself. Now, how can that happen? Like, why would a company that so heavily relies on sugar, why would they be allowed to ration sugar? What was the rationale? Coca-Cola basically told the government that they're an essential product because they people soldiers drinking Coke in wartime is like basically reminded them of home. And so what ended up happening was that they were able to use that, take all the sugar for themselves, kill their competitors, and not only that, use government money to build Coca-Cola plants in foreign countries that we were in World War II. And so those companies, those pre-built plants, basically got government subsidies to sell Coke in those regions. And, because we had this embargo on, like, say, Germany for not allowing them to buy American products. What Coca-Cola ended up doing was basically taking the exact same formula, tweaking it a little bit, and then putting it under a different brand. That brand is Fanta. So whenever you're drinking Coke, when you're drinking Fanta now, it's basically the Nazi drink. It's the Nazi Coke drink. So it's pretty fucking funny. Like every single company goes through shit like this. Even though like Coca-Cola now has this wholesome image. Like you remember the campaign of "I want to buy the world of Coke," or you can look that up on YouTube. It's a very famous song and ad. Like Coca-Cola has such a wholesome image, and yet they still pull shit like this. So with that, let's talk to my client. Let's bring him up.
Hello, hello.
Yo, hello.
Yeah.
Hey,
Can you
what's
hear
up?
you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hey,
Yeah, doing good. A little bit tired, but doing good so far.
yeah.
How about you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. So,
All right.
catch me up on everything. How has your practice been? I know you've been a little tired. You took like a day off or something to recharge.
Yeah. I took like the Sunday,
Okay.
like the evening of the Saturday and the Sunday because I was feeling very unproductive.
Okay. That's
And
fine.
I actually on Sunday I went back to practice. I did a mock with a friend
Uh-huh.
just to see how things were going.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yesterday and today I've been practicing again,
Okay.
and that's pretty much it. And yeah, being very strict in like the framework, like all the steps we talked in the last coaching session
Mm-hmm.
to make sure to cover my ass with the examples. I've been focused a lot on that, and to really break my code. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So you mentioned that you did a
Um,
mock interview. You
Two actually
you did
in
two.
the same day. Yeah.
How did you do on those? I'm curious.
Hold on, let me just. Okay, so for the first one, I told to my friend to ask two questions.
Uh-huh.
He gave me two questions, and okay, let's do the two. The first one is like to reverse the word in the string, and the second one is a exercise called decode strings.
Okay.
The first one, he said that was kind of good. I just messed it up with the Python command, like to reverse. I did this the wrong way. But so far, he said that was good, like the timing. Uh, for the second one, like there was a bad thing he pointed out. Let me just try to remember based on his notes. Yeah, he said that I went in the final result. Okay, was a recursive solution, but he said that I was not he was not understanding clearly what I was trying to explain, and I had to repeat myself 3 times, which is not a good sign. But in the end, he understood. I yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that was for the second question.
Okay.
He asked me like 2 questions in a row, and
Wait, what did you say the
basically
questions were again? I'm taking notes here.
the first one was called reverse words in a string. For that one, he said like that one they asked for him in the Microsoft phone screen,
Okay.
and I gave like 3 solutions for him, even one that he didn't he didn't think about that was based like what I was thinking, which he found out pretty clever, but was like my most optimized solution,
Okay.
you know. And for the decode strings, I'd say that he said that I took a little bit too much time deriving the solution, even though it was clear, like the way I was deriving, but he didn't catch in the first time, you know. Only me explaining like twice. I guess that was the fact of like me not. I'm not so being too clear while explaining. But in the end, he understood.
Yeah.
But I solved both questions anyways. And yeah, and then yesterday and today I've been practicing exercises like that I did in the past. Just redoing, make sure to be as close to grokking and EPI
Okay.
as possible. Yeah.
This mock interview you're doing with your friend, is he like an actual engineer now? Like, what's
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
He's an Amazon L3, and he got an offer from Microsoft as well. He will move to next year, this year actually, to the US.
Perfect. Okay. So at least you're working with someone who at least has passed the interview and can give you like some feedback. I think that's okay. I
Yeah.
do and look at the notes. Yeah. Again, we know that the not clearly explaining what you want to do has been an issue. But I kind of figured that as long as you keep trying to explain like your five and clear up your explanations in practice, eventually it'll transfer over. I suspect that it took you too long to derive because you were trying to be as complete as possible. Again, I don't want you to skip steps just yet. I mean, if it comes right down to it, okay, fine, but to speed up your time a little bit. But you're still at the point where I want you to cover your ass on all the different tests. I'd rather you be complete. And then with time, once you can do this, then we can start to talk about speeding up. But you're not anywhere near ready to speed up. So you know, it's just kind of like part of that. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask is, I know you have a phone screen coming up this like tomorrow, I think.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow for Facebook. Okay. And then you have, I think, Microsoft at the end, on site at the end of the month.
March 30.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
31st, so end of month. Like, if we can at least get you to instinctively think about the tests, then skipping steps should come very naturally. So we're definitely a little bit short on time based on what we're trying to do here, but we could make it. It's 60-70% chance of doing it. So let's take a look at your homework. Let's see what you did.
Oh, just let me say one more thing before we move on.
Yeah.
There was like, he put like very bad in the end of the first question because I commit again like this thing of say O to the end, you know. And he said, "Man, never do this because you're gonna scare the interviewer."
Yeah, it's a known issue. So I would say, from now on, at least like talk out the runtime and prove the runtime before you make it. So let's add that to the homework as well. I think we're almost we're at that point where runtime is going to be matter. So you already know you're making this mistake. So run.
Yeah. He said he gave me one tip, which I think was kind of good. He said, instead of like just saying, try to write, and if had like a mispronounce, you know, at least the interviewer will see that your intention was to pronounce this thing, and you will see, oh yeah, I did the wrong thing, and that is the right pronunciation. Anyways.
Okay, yeah. I want you to do the work again, so that way, at the very least, the interviewer can say, "Oh, yeah, you mispronounced." But to me, like when you say, like this is the third, fourth time you mispronounce, so I don't think it's mispronounced anymore. I think you just plain don't do it. You're not like you don't know how to think about it. So
I'm totally sure it's mispronounced. It's because I it's like O of N. Sometimes I say O to the N, but it's because it's a matter of like 2 and 4. In Portuguese, it's the same thing, and sometimes I change this, you know. But I know that when it's something to the power of something, I need to use 2, you know, instead of you know. It's kind of like matter of pronunciation.
Yeah, but it's like these things really matter. So at the very least, again, cover your ass by at least doing the work first, and then if you trip up, then you at least have an excuse. That's all I would ask.
Gotcha. Okay. I will do it.
All right, so let's take a look at your homework then. Okay, so let's see.
I send you a link because each week I'm creating a new Google.
I see it. The
practice
F5, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so we don't be separated by week. Yeah.
Fine. All right, let's see. Implement a cyclic right shift for a linked list. So 2, 3, 5, 3, 2. And it shifts over right time 3 times. Okay. Example 1.
And take the modulo is in case like the shift is greater than the size of the list.
Okay. In this particular situation, I understand this still strikes me as a little bit of premature optimization to think about. It's a little penalty to think about it, but I wouldn't commit to it right now only because like here you haven't really come up with a actual solution. So think about like how to optimize the weird cases is not something that you should be thinking about. So I would say like at least get a solution first and then optimize on top of it. It's a little bit scary that. Again, it's like low penalty here because it's kind of obvious that you would need some modulus operator, but just be aware of that. Yeah. So k normalized 8 modulus 5 equals 4. Really?
No, 5 minus 4, 1.
Your k is 8. So if like 1, 2, 3. Okay, I see. It should be.
I was trying to like derive an idea, but yeah, when I was like,
It should. Do you know what the modulus operator actually is? It's the remainder, right?
yeah, it's the remainder.
So this should be 3, not 4.
It's 3. I just checked here. Yeah.
Yes. So you screwed up the modulus. So again, this is a mistake. I would highlight this. I would go back over and highlight it. It's like, why the fuck did... I'm pretty sure that this will show up in your answer somewhere, but this is something I would highlight immediately. Anyway, let's see what your approach is. First take the modulus of k, subtract size list, calculate the delta. Why do you need to subtract the size list? Shouldn't it just be the modulus at all? Why do you need to subtract the size list?
Because sometimes the k is the list. I'm just validating the k.
But the thing is that if my linked list is 5 elements, right? Then I don't need to make a shift, right? So it's like this here, what, 2, 3, 5. So what, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. I come back to right where I started.
Yeah.
So I don't need
For
to
sure.
I don't need to subtract the size of the list at all.
But if your k is like greater than the size of the list,
Okay,
that was
sure. Let's try that. So let's say my k. Let's take this one again, right?
yeah.
So let's say here.
Mhm.
I'm here, right? So 1
Yeah.
goes here, 2 goes here, 3, 4, and then 5 goes back to here, 6, 7, and then 8. Isn't that just the same as shifting over by 3 times?
Yes, for that reason I was like, yeah, I was taking the modulo and subtracting.
This should
By
just be
size.
it's only modulus. You shouldn't need to, you literally came to this conclusion because you fucked up your modulus right here. So you don't. It doesn't. And plus, it doesn't even make sense. So whatever. It doesn't seem like it impacted you later on, but this is like this is really fucking bad. I would have like if you come up with this, it's like I don't know if I would have stepped in. I probably would have stepped in because I'd probably say it's a simple math mistake, but this is like really fucking bad. It just took like if you need to be better with modulus operators. Like it just kills mistakes again. Anyway, like this like shit I would be highlighting in my write up once I review this. I'd be like, oh, I should have fucking done that. Okay, whatever. Copy all the elements. Oh, delta point. Calculate the delta. So you get some difference here. Okay, from this operation.
Yeah,
Head,
like
head,
for this naive approach, I was trying to allocate more space. You know.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, for this I consider as a naive approach.
I see.
Yeah.
Delta pointers ahead. Language is a little bit weird, but it's a little bit better than what I saw last week. So at least like you say, move the pointer ahead this number of times to make a new head. Copy out and then just iterate. And then just iterate into a new list and then copy all the ones from. Yeah, I get it. So copy that.
I was one question here. I was like getting a hard time to express this in a better way. For example, when I calculated this difference, you know. And to say that I need to move like this n times, that this n is like the delta that I just calculated. I was trying to put this in a more simple way, you know? So for this, I just use delta. Yeah.
I would say just use X because you just need a number. But I mean, delta's fine. Delta
Okay.
usually means it's a difference, but I understand where you might say this. But to me, it's like if it's just a throwaway number, which in this case it is, just says how many times I need to move the pointer ahead, I could just set an X. So the way I would have described your solution would have been, take the modulus of k. I would say take k modulus size of list equals to x, and then move a pointer ahead by x times, and then copy the list from the pointer to the end into a new list, and then copy the list from head to the pointer and append to the end of new list. This is the way I would have done it.
Great.
The reason why is because it's instructions. Like, now I understand this is going to a variable. I only need to use this x variable. This it's like a throwaway, right? It's just a number. It just means I want to move the pointers this number of times, and then from pointer to the end of the list of the original list and copy that into a new list. That's easy to understand. And then each individual instruction here is just one thing, right? Copy the list from head of the original list to the pointer, and then append that chunk to the end of the new list. It's like very easy. It's just very easy.
Just like a recipe.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, I mean, like, to be fair, like you got pretty close, but it's just like a little bit cleaner on the notation, but it's fine. It's at least a little bit better. Okay. Basically, do the pointers in place. You can do it in place. Calculate list. Take some modulus to get a valid k. Yeah. So this is like where you might have a disconnect between the subtract. So this would have been, yeah. Literally, I think your carelessness here saved you. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, this subtract list here, and it didn't show up in your final problem. So, that's something to be worried about. But it saved you here. That's why you didn't catch it. And then make the head for list in the position of the delta. Then make the first nodes be the last ones. Okay, I understand what you're doing here. Explanation could be a little bit cleaner. Again, it just means that make the head the first list at the position of delta. Yep, I would say delta needs to be. I would still do this, like move it. Move pointer, move ahead by x times, and then make that the head of the new list, and then append the head of the original list to the end of your current list, and then use the head of the pointer as the head of your new list. That's the way I would have described it, but I understand what you're doing here. It could be a little bit cleaner, but it's a little bit off the mark, but I'm not gonna be too upset about it. So, you understand why this could be a little bit confusing, but it's not that bad.
And make first nodes be the last ones. Yeah, the last ones. It's kind of vague.
Yeah. So it's like you see here, like each line I take is an individual instruction. Like one variable does one thing, and then what do I do with it? What do I do with the result? I think that's probably a good formula for you to follow. Like take one idea or thing, do an operation with it, get a result, and then do what with and then do what with the result. Get a result, and then you pipe the result into something else. So it's like for instance this line, copy the list. So take one idea from the pointer to the end. This is the range I'm playing with. Copy list, and then sub point of the list, and then put that copy into a new list. So you see, like it just does one action, and then just this line here just qualifies the amount of the list I want. Yeah, I can say the whole list into a new list, or I can say the amount, how much of the list I want.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this is it's like just keeping with one variable, does one idea, and then moves it into the next. And then what do I want to do with it? So each thing just encapsulates, each step encapsulates one idea. That's it. Other than that, okay. So did you compare with the? Okay, so here you have the tests.
That was kind of different. For that, I don't set like on the practice diary as a equal to. Was not a clone, in my opinion, because they did a kind of a different thing.
Okay.
They kind of like linked the first node with the last one, and then kind of rotate the list to find a new head. I just find the new head a little bit different.
Yeah, you already have a pointer at the new head, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But okay. I used like an extra while, which they didn't use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Their solution was clearer than mine.
Yeah, so then I would have, then what did you, so I want you to really write down what the heck you can do better next time. Did you put that in the practice diary?
I put in the practice diary. Let me just double check. Yeah, I put like API solution, create a cycle between a head and the end of a list, and define the new head, and new end based on the number of rotations, like number of shifts of the head.
Okay.
I did.
Okay, got it. All right, let me bust open the practice diary then.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see what you got going here. What row am I looking at?
165.
Okay, EPI solution creates. So EPI solution creates a cycle between the headless and endless and defines the headless, the new head and the new end based on the number of rotations. Okay. I mean, you still have it.
Cycle, I mean link. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that based on what you did here, I can see why. Okay. Yeah. So in this case, how would you? So So the question then becomes, how do you get from your solution to theirs?
Basically, create this link from this. From the.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I mean, yeah. You just do it, but I'm saying, what is the insight you needed in order to do it?
The insight I need is that I just need to. Instead of do copies of nodes, I just need to think about shift the head and just this, only this, not about like any extra.
It's not what I'm asking again. It's So you know, like how we used to build. When we come up with these solutions, we go from naive to optimal, and then usually there's like some inefficiency, right, that we want to address in order to come up with our solution, right? That's the question I'm asking here. What's the inefficiency? And I'll just give you the answer for the sake of time. The answer is the fact that we have two loops. It's like, hey, wait a minute. We have a bunch of extra code. Could I do better by shrinking and compacting the code? Like you mentioned, you saw that they had a lot less code, right? And you have two loops that are managing a shit ton of variables. So the next question would be like, okay, what's inefficient is that I use too much code to express the idea. So the insight I need to ask is simply just, how do I use less code? So in this case, it's just like, instead of making a 2 copy operation, or whatever you did, it's to make it combine into one operation that's clean and simple. So then the next thing you would be searching for is like, okay, well, how do I do that? And et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically, it's a small optimization. You wouldn't get necessarily dinged for this in a coding interview, but it's like, these are little details that you need to be really, really cognizant of. You really need to be like fucking laser focused and like, oh yeah, I should be thinking about this too. You remember what we talked about?
I acknowledge the fact of the more code,
right?
But I think it's one question here. When I realize, okay, there can be less code, can I just create another solution based on that?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it's better?
You mean like once after you're done reviewing it?
Yeah, and okay, there is even a way for me to do this in one pass. So let me try to write a better. Yeah, I think it's the way, right? I'm just.
Yeah, you should be, because once you think of a reason, like, oh yeah, I could have done this better, prove it by actually doing it, right? Like treat it like, as if you had that insight, and then go back into the where you left off, and then try it out, see if that logically follows.
For sure.
Okay.
Just as I did on the mock interview.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so if there is a difference in your solution between your solution, go back and try it out. See if it happens. Because there's like a very big fucking difference between like, oh, I theorized that this is like what I should learn versus actually doing it, Because the only way you really know if your answer is right or not is if you put it into practice and it gives you the desired results. It's about being deliberate, right?
Yes.
Yeah, instead of like theorizing 10,000 different ways it could, it's like your answer could be, or whether or not you're right or wrong. It's simply easier to just fucking go for it, right? And it's like, oh, this is the step I needed in order to get this solution. So then try it out. Okay, let's suppose you went back into the homework, that you had that insight, see if it gets you to that solution. That's it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so maximum CPU load. Next one.
The same issue happened this one actually, because I was able to derive a solution that works. I tested like over and over, but like in the end, when I was comparing with Grokking, they just use like like one last comparison instead of me, and I really dive deep in like why they did this.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
because
So
mine was kind of convoluted compared to them.
got it. So let's kind of zoom into another topic I want to talk about. Your tests. So my question to you is, how did you figure out what tests you want to run?
Okay, so taking uh, I try to take different cases. I'm not, for example, there can be different values for the same kind of test, but I try to take different kind of tests.
Okay.
Like for example, for this maximum CPU load.
Oh no, I'm going back to the cyclic right shift.
Okay, for the cyclic right shift.
Yeah, how did you decide which tests to do?
First, came up with this idea of like, if the number of shifts is the k is the same size of the size of the list, what
Okay.
should I do? There's no cycles.
Okay,
That's a test.
good.
If the k is like in the size of, actually if the k is in the size of the list, less than the size of the list, which is the example that the book did, so nothing new. And the other example that I just came with, if the k is greater than the size of the list,
Okay.
basically, I didn't think about anything else.
Okay, that's one dimension, and so you covered like the modulus. You covered that with the modulus operator. So that's fine. And I like those 3 test cases, but I think you should also try to. There's probably 1 or 2 other edge cases that you can handle. What do you think those would have been?
One that I just thought I didn't put here was like, if it was like, let's say 10 times the k is 10 times the size of the list. You know?
Not quite, because you
But
still.
it was the same thing.
It would still be
It
the
was the
same
same
thing.
thing.
Modulus. The modulus would take
Yeah,
care of
yeah.
it. That's not what I'm talking about. Like think about your approach. Like I highlighted here.
Oh.
Think about every angle.
The null. The null. I checked the null.
Yeah.
Right? If the k was equal to 0, and I just put as a basic validation here.
Oh, perfect. Good.
So, but I didn't write actually on the test.
I mean,
Should
this,
I write?
no, it's fine because this is like pretty self-evident. I'm fine with that. Definitely,
Okay.
I would say like try to make sure like the weird. This is where we start getting into weird ones. So yes, you covered your ass on this one. You tried the lower, higher, middle, and you know that modulus will cover your ass on that. That's fine. And then now it's like, oh yeah, well now we need to get to the weird ones where, you know, what if the size of the list is 0? What if the size of the list is 1? That's basically that's like what's left here. And then maybe some variation of what happens if k. No. That's really it actually. What happens if we have 0 and 1 list? And then after that, I would argue that you pretty much covered your ass on all of them, on all the possible cases. So good job recognizing this. Now the only last thing I would have done is just a list of 1, just to make sure I would have gotten the same. But
Hold up, but just one question. If the size of the list is equal to 1,
yes.
which is the difference compared to this? Let me just try to analyze here.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, doesn't matter the k, right? Doesn't matter because you're just gonna return the first node. There's nothing to rotate.
Yeah. But it's just like, this is a test that I would have acknowledged. I would have tried saying, hey, yeah, let me just make sure. Because it's kind of a weird one. It's not immediately obvious that it would be immediately handled.
Just let me take a note here.
Yeah. If it's not obvious that it's immediately handled, then it's something you should test for. So to me, at least this is from my perspective, is that with the modulus operator, it's obvious that something that is bigger than k, less than k, and middle, and equal to k, those are the 3 test cases. Anything like, you know, double, triple, quadruple, the value of n, in this case, it doesn't. It's inconsequential. It's the same test case. So that's kind of like what I mean by obvious. It's like, what are the things that this operation does? Like we're dealing with like a predeterministic system where we're not going to assume that modulus is going to give us some crazy number each and every single time we randomly try shit, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like what are the different.
Realize that.
Yeah. So it's like, what are the different cases? What are the different possibilities at each of these steps? And do I cover my ass on all of them?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
And one thing I just took from one of your videos, you said like, don't just try to create a lot of examples, the same examples.
Yes.
Like different numbers but the same. Try different scenarios for different examples.
Right.
Just try to apply this to cover my ass. Yeah.
Yes. These scenarios should be representative of the different like test cases. So like going back to the idea, the modulus operator, right? It makes no difference for a list of 5 if my k is 100 or 10,000. They're the same exact case where I'm just trying to make sure that I've captured the idea of what happens about to rotate a shit ton of times.
Yeah.
So
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. So that's kind of what I mean by representative.
Okay. And I did the same thing for the following exercise as well.
Yeah. Let's see the CPU load. I want to make sure that whatever we talked about up here is consistent. So you're given a number of jobs. Each job has a start, end time, and CPU when it's running. Our goal is to find the maximum CPU load at any time if all the jobs are running on the same machine. Okay. Yeah, I like this one. So it's a scheduling problem.
Yeah.
1, 4,
I
2,
misapplied a pattern the last time I did this problem.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
I vaguely remember you threw a random pattern at it, and I said there's
I try like a sliding window.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So this is the part where you need to like say, oh yeah, this is like the input outputs. This is like the preconditions and all that stuff. Okay, so right now you're doing an explanation of the intervals and explaining why these examples work. Fine.
No, I just copied this.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't wrote this.
Okay, so yeah, this should explain to you, and so you drew it out. Fine. Interval, saying why these overlap. Okay, got it. Okay, so yeah, I drew it. I see that you drew it out here. This is understandable, easy. Too much space, too complex to implement. Basically, you're just filling in an array full of the time of the intervals of 1 where they're covered and then 0 when they're not, and then x and basically just counted them.
Yeah, the XOR kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not really an XOR because XOR is binary for each operation.
Yeah,
you just kind of sum them up.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's you want to say it's too complicated to implement? No, okay, that's fine. Sure, if it's too complicated, that's fine. Let's see. Last interval 3, 4 is 7. It's not.
I consider a very edge case because if you see, for example, the intervals overlap 3, like the first interval of value 3 and the 4, they overlap just in the first part, but not in the second part. So I thought maybe that's a good example to test case,
I would say a better example is like this one. What happens if they meet at the edge? Because it's usually for these intervals is not inclusive, right? If you go from 1 to 3, it's 3. It starts at it stops at 3, right? And so if we had something like 3.1, then it would be covered, right? So a more interesting test case would actually be at the edge. Because if you think about it, the difference between 3 and 4 and 3 and then 100 and then let's say 900, there's no difference. The reason why is because there's still this gap between 3 and 4. But if you do it on the edge, then it's a little bit more material. We want to make sure that we've covered ourselves there. Again, like these examples are supposed to be representative of some idea we're testing. In this case, we're trying to represent the gap. That's the edge cases, and these edge cases need to represent an idea. So that's why I'm very big on making sure that you have the idea of the code before you write the code. That way you understand and can test the idea itself. It's like a proxy. It's a proxy to actually testing the code. It'll give you much better coverage. Okay, it's fine. All right, so you cover this 3 plus 4 is so. Let's use an example here.
Because there's 2 possibilities. For example, for the first one, for the second one, the sum can be 7, but for the second and for with the third, this can be 10. 4 plus 6 and then 3 plus 4.
Okay.
That's what. Yeah, 2 possibilities. So
yeah.
I will consider the bigger one.
Okay. One other one that I would want to consider is literally what happens if this is a 2 as well. How does this test case handle? So that's something I would consider just because okay, now that I've covered this I have the overlap between 2 intervals. Then what happens if another interval overlaps on that? What happens on the same chunk? So
okay.
I'm just sharing my thoughts, but let's see if you do that. So you just take 1 and 3, 2 and 5, 3 and 4, 7. So what is this 1 and 4, 2 and 5? Okay, let me jump ahead to the pseudocode because I'm kind of lost here what you're trying to do here, but let's see. Set the first interval. So
I was trying to
go ahead.
Derive a rule set like in this part before the pseudocode. I was trying to and for this I just put the intervals, not the value of
Okay, so for all elements in the array from 1 to n minus 1, so you mean the intervals?
I should.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine because it's an array, so it's a little bit hazy, but it's okay because there's a little bit more context. But I would definitely try to be a little bit more atomic. So overlap with intersection. If the last element or the last interval from the intersection is greater than the start of the current one, then this means that the last. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's an overlap. So sum up the current job weight and then calculate the global max. Okay. So if they overlap, then you just add it. Otherwise, else.
Yeah.
If
I was in that part comparing with the previous job.
Okay. And else, otherwise, it's the last element from the previous. Sorry, the current job. I see. Okay. This looks fantastically complicated. And I
Yeah.
think you'll understand why if you did this test case.
My idea was basically I compared with Grokking again, like trying to re-engineer, comparing, really understand why their solution works, and what I was trying to do, and I got like I would say, I got stuck with this idea is like, if I have, for example, okay, there's overlap here.
Yeah.
Well, let's take this example. There's overlap that goes from 2 to 3. Okay. Between the first and the second interval.
Okay.
And okay, I just need to see if that overlap happened with the third one.
Sure.
So in this case, it happens. So it will be like, yeah, no, actually, I just tweaked this example.
Okay.
But imagine that this is 3.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's 9. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
But that's gonna be, I have an overlap between like the value actually 3
Okay.
and 5. But this overlaps here, I have to sum 3 values. That
Yes.
is 3 plus 4 plus 6, you know. So I was considering kind of this intersection, this dynamic intersection, to do the sum of like the jobs, you know.
Oh, I see what you're going for. Okay, so you're basically talking. I think you explained it kind of poorly, but it's the idea is that, well, if you take the two intervals, you have an interval at 1, and then you have a 2, 3, 2 comma 3 where they overlap, and then you have this interval 3 comma 5 where it doesn't overlap, right? And then now you have to basically account for all of these when you go into the next interval. So that's what I mean by like, that's why like what I said, like if you iterate and then you keep doing this intersection over and over again, then you end up in this very weird state where you have to keep track of like literally 10,000 intervals. Because like what happens if there's like more and more intervals that potentially overlap? You end up in this very slicey and dicey weird situation.
I was just gonna like increment this into my intersection because like all of those n intervals, they're gonna overlap.
Okay. Yeah, it's
That's
like
what I was trying to think.
I get where you're going with this, but then to me, it's like the moment I started seeing this, like, oh, I'm gonna keep track of the number of intervals that overlap and don't overlap. I'm just like, are we sure we want to go down that route? Just because, like, well, you know, how you literally came up with 2 different intervals the moment you did 2 of these, right? And then what happens if the overlap happens again? Do we get 4 intervals? Do we have to keep track of? Do we get 8 intervals? Do we have to keep track of? You see, like, the moment that I noticed that we are splitting the result, and that this result is not like finite. We end up with this really weird situation where basically the record that we keep track of gets blown up. So that's like the first red flag to me.
But at the moment that they doesn't overlap anymore, that is in the second else case here, I was just gonna consider another intersection. You know? So
yeah, it wiped the slate clean. Yeah.
Yeah, I create a new intersection. You know, so I'm not considering like all of the past intersections that happened.
That's fine, but then suppose that you know this case keeps going and going and going. That's my problem. My problem is that if it keeps overlapping, you keep having the slice and dice situation. And that's kind of like what I'm scared of. That's why I would be hesitant to do it. I get like you banking on like eventually the intervals will not overlap. But what if they don't? What if they give you literally like 10 intervals that all overlap with one another? You know. So like let's say like let's say that I have something here that's like 4 comma 12.
Yeah, they overlap.
Yeah, and so now like you see how your situation just becomes even more complicated because now you have to account for like this 3 and 5 that doesn't overlap. And then here now you have a 4 and 5, and then you have a 3 and 5 that did. It's not obvious to me, but maybe it's obvious to you, in which case you could probably simplify the explanation. But either way, I do not believe Grokking would do this. Do they do this?
No, Grokking did. Grokking just compared with the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, I can show you.
Yeah. And then I want to see.
Give me 1 minute. Please.
Yeah, go ahead.
just opening the question, and I'm gonna send you the resolution.
Yeah, I have the book. Let me
I'm gonna paste on the doc, right?
Okay, actually, yeah. Hold on. Let me actually let me bust open the book out myself because I kind of want to see. Because you have the Python version, I have the Java version, and I like Java version just because it's a little bit more verbose and easier to read.
Okay.
I'm not too familiar with like Python syntax. It's kind of shit for me. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, let me just go ahead and do that. So, yeah, red tape, blue tape. This one's called.
I think it's the problem challenge 2.
Oh, this is Grokking. This is Grokking, not API,
Python.
right?
It's Grokking, yeah.
Okay, cool. Actually, yeah, go ahead, paste it.
Oh, hold up. Let me paste so.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, can you see?
Did you put it at the top or bottom?
I highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
On the page.
Okay.
8. On the page.
I see. Did they explain how they came up with
6.
it? Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
All right.
I can copy as well. Hold up. And actually, they are using like objects. So that's the explanation of them.
It doesn't matter if it's object. It's just do 2 intervals as well. Okay. So let's see. They sorted by start count and then start load end load. And then see jobs start less than end. Jobs CPU load plus the I guess it's the current running load.
Yeah, that's the current
job. The current load. Max load will be max load versus sum load. And then otherwise, and then the end. This is what they do here. End will just be the maximum of the latest job. Okay. Otherwise, if they don't overlap, then this is the reset situation that you talked about. So my question then is, why is this end necessary?
Yeah, because it needs to have this kind of intersection that they did using kind of the same interval.
Okay. Now I think I misunderstood the problem actually. It's that so basically for this overlap here, let's say that you need 3 and 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you can dynamically power down the system. Is that it needs to last throughout the entire time that the system is running. So I see. So I misunderstood the problem. I was thinking like, okay, what's the maximum at any point? And then and it looks like they only expect for the entire length of the system running, so of all time. So you don't actually need. I see. Yeah.
If you look what they asked, it's kind of we're given a list of jobs. Each job has a start time and an end time, and a CPU load when it's running. Our goal is to find the maximum CPU load at any time if all the jobs are running on the same machine. I kind of understand at any time, so there can be like 3 jobs lined up running at the same time.
I see. Yeah. I'm gonna say that this one's the weird one. I don't think your approach is necessarily that wrong. Even I'm getting kind of confused because like I already showed an example of like, well, we don't necessarily need like all that power necessarily, because once you have like this example I gave you, it's like, well, in this solution, what would end up happening is that it would just keep summing it up, even though technically you only need 7 here and then 10 here. So the answer this answer would have given you 17.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, yeah. I'm gonna say ignore this one. It's just like, to me, I'm catching some weird shit from it. So I don't necessarily blame you for like doing this. It's pretty close to what the answer does here, but it's just like, I think it's just a bad question in general. Or at least the answer that they gave is pretty bad. So whatever. I'm gonna call it a throwaway problem, but it's like you kind of see like how to me it's like it's the way I thought about it. It's just like I was like, this doesn't seem quite right. Anyway.
What do you mean by throwing problem?
It's like if the answer doesn't like if I can come up with a counterexample to where the answer is wrong, then that probably means that the answer probably wasn't well thought out. That's why I'm not in favor of like doing grokking that much. It's like what that's why I kind of like said, okay, after you do get the pattern and you got that down, EPI is much more consistent. This is why I kind of talked about this with like the good source of knowledge. EPI is much more consistent with it. So it's gonna
when I finished my solution, I even talked to myself, man, I think I don't know if it's right to say that, but my solution I think is it's kind of more exact than theirs, you know, because they're considering the whole interval, and I was consider each moment in time.
Right. So even if once you have that instinct, then it's up to you to prove it. So at this point, I would literally throw this example at it. And it's like, hey, let me make sure, because obviously the answer here is I only need 10, right? Would this answer give me 10? And if not, then I'd say, hey, this answer's fucking wrong. Here's a very solid example of this not working.
I test like with the the running environments that they had, and it gave different than my answer.
That's where I would be like, well, what is the right answer here? And obviously, in this example, it's very clear that what is the right answer. So, those are the times I'd be like, you know what, whatever.
But anyways, yeah, as you mentioned, a throwing problem.
Yeah. But this also goes back to the idea of testing, making sure that, well, just because in general you should assume that the book is right, but then there should be like there might be a little nagging voice in the back of your head saying, you know, making sure once you can come up with these test cases, it's like, oh yeah, I covered my ass, I still got it wrong, why? And just being able to resolve that. So, regardless, I still think at this point you kind of understand the patterns. Just stick with EPI for now. But I really want, but I like the idea that you're testing here. And I really want you to really be much more thorough with the testing. I'll keep this up. And make sure that you test at every single stage. Make sure you grab all the, like we mentioned before, free lunches. Overall, it's much better than what I've seen before, and I think that you kind of can tell that it is much better than before.
Can you just review one more, please?
Yeah, sure. We got time. What's up?
The red tape, blue tape. Yeah, because last time I solved this in a coaching session.
Yeah.
I kind of came up with all of these examples.
Good. Okay.
Not the examples, but the cases for me to derive the perfect answer. Kind of without an objective. And now I set the objective, you know, and kind of was kind of more clear what I wanted.
Okay.
And yeah.
Cool.
It was totally clear. It was not that. It was more clear. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so you take an input red tape, blue tape, output false. Yep. So this one is you're just drawing out the actual examples, 1 to 6, and then blue tape's 1, 3, 3, and 5. You kind of combine them, and you said I'm not sure what this is. Why is this here?
No, yeah, I just put like that. That's another blue tape. Yeah.
Oh, just for you testing randomly. That's just your works. Okay. So fine, I'm okay with this. Is not meant to represent. This is just your workspace. That's fine. Yeah. You're just trying random stuff, trying the examples out. I'm fine with that. First approach. So you okay. So you're trying this out, saying, hey, let's populate an array. Times place calculate the max of all value intervals. Good. That I'm okay with this. Inefficiency, too much space, too many traversals. Yeah, 2 space, 2 traversal. Okay, fine. Merge all blue tapes and okay, this is optimization, and start with current. Okay, this is premature and compare the end and start current blue tape with red tape. Okay, you basically you need to say you need to iterate through it. You forgot to say you're going to iterate through all the blue tapes.
Merge all the blue tapes and compare the end and start with the current.
This is part where you kind of lost. You had the first part right, and then this is where you dropped the ball. It's like, okay, well then now that you did that one result, remember what I said before? I like you want just one action only per line. And so in this case, it'd be like you merge all the blue tapes. Great. Next thing would be to iterate through all the blue tapes, and for each blue tape, compare it with red tape, and then for each one you compare and chop off the result based on whether or not they overlap. And then this is when you would dive into the cases of them overlapping. So it's just literally you missed that small step, but I like the idea. You want to say for every single statement you make, one idea only.
For sure, I'll keep this in mind for the next ones.
Yeah, I gave you the example of me like doing it per line by line, and it's pretty easy to understand, especially because I type in very short fragments, and it's a lot easier to read those than like a long sentence. So I'm fine with this.
So,
okay, I'm fine with this.
It will be something like this, right? Like iterate and compare the.
I would just say iterate through blue tape because iterate and compare it implies 2 operations at once.
Through blue tape. Compare the start. Actually, compare the end and the start of current blue tape with the red tape.
Yeah, with the red.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, you can say that. I would say just compare blue tape, red tape, and then just say, and then describe the overlapping issue. But you see, like it's just one idea only per line.
For sure.
And then and once you do that, you should be able to talk the same way as well. So, yeah. So then here, okay, I'll put true. But the thing is that okay, now that you do all this, now you need to say what the result is. Now that you compared them, now that you know like these are all different ways to overlap. What happens in each one of these cases?
Yeah, I put like the output for each one.
Did you? This one should be red tape,
Yeah.
blue tape. Okay. Okay, this I'm curious about. This is the big one that usually trips people up.
That's true because
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
It falls in the first example. Actually, yeah, it falls into the A example because it's the same thing. There's a portion of the red tape that starts earlier than the blue tape. You know.
I see. Okay, so then you get to so you're getting to the n log n solution. Yeah, it's you need to state your runtimes, but I think you have the n log n solution because you sorted it.
Yeah, I got this solution actually because I sorted for sure.
That's fine. Okay, let's get there then. The order n one that is the order n where you just like pick each one and then just like look at it. Then it's fine. Yeah. Okay, I understand what you're doing here. That's fine. N log n I think it's perfectly fine to pass the phone screen, but then you might also want to state that there's an order n solution that you can just without sorting it, and it would just do this, except that you would just blow up you would just chop up the red tape based on it. It's fine. Other than that, I think the approach is good. It's much cleaner. I would like to see much more of this. So yeah, good job. I definitely want to see like this kind of testing and making sure that you cover your ass on every single one. So it's better than before. And just keep doing that. I want to say keep doing EPI actually. Stop. I think grokking at this point is not going to help you. But really understanding API and really take, like I said before, really assume that they are the golden solution and really try to copy what they think. And remember what I said about once you think there's a difference, once you think that you have the idea of what it takes to go from your solution to theirs, go back and actually do it. Make sure that your insight is correct. So yeah.
I have one question about the solutions of EPI.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes they get very esoteric. I know how to program basic, like the basic Python. I'm a beginner, but I think that those guys that wrote those solutions, they're very pros, professionals.
Yeah.
And sometimes the solution, the way that they came up with the solution was the same as mine. But when there's the code, it's something pretty esoteric.
Yeah.
If the idea is the same as mine, and like they are stating, okay, first we'll sort and then we're gonna try to find something, can I consider that it's a clone or not?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I would just try to prove it just to make sure. So, like, for instance, if they do, like, those one-liner for loops and whatever, just mentally make that as, like, a for loop that you would have done, So, for instance, let's say I did, like, suppose they come up with, like, x is equal to n plus 1 for y in 1.5 or something like that. I don't fucking know. It's just, like, it'd be the same as for y for int I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, and then, x at I equal to, like, n plus 1, or I don't fucking know. You get the idea. But it's like, so for something like super compressed like this, it's just like, don't worry too much about it. Just do a mental transition like this.
No, it's worse than this, actually. Because, that exercise called traverse a matrix, a 2x2 matrix in a spiral,
Yeah.
I did this using a lot of for loops, like kind of shrinking, kind of in a shell,
Yeah.
and shrinking like my bounds. And, but the way they did this was kind of using a zip function with a offset function. I never used this. I know how to program because of the interviews. I never worked with Python in that level,
Yeah, that's a stream API, and I fucking hate the way they do it because like in Kotlin it's nice because if I do like a stream, then I can say dot map, and then so like stream x from 1 to 5, right, and then dot map map is x plus 1, and then dot filter of x greater than 3, right? What fucking Python makes you do is like they make you do a stream, and then they make you map with some like fucking lambda, fucking lambda bullshit.
I have a lot of friends that do this at work, and why do you do this? It's not clear to me. Please. Yeah.
Which one is like fucking like easier to read? The fucking first one. I don't like using like fucking stream shit like from Python. It blows my goddamn mind. I would never do this just because like it's so unreadable. Like.
Okay.
So I don't fucking care. Like I would rather have clean code that's readable because it's a fucking human reading it than do all this like fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's
like, they say it's more in Portuguese we say that is more how to say it's more elegant.
Yeah.
Oh, it's more elegant to write this in one line and breaking the lines.
Yeah.
Then create a function for this.
Yeah, exactly. Like you would just like do this each like one line and one line only because it's again at the end of the day like we've mentioned is a human being that you're interacting with.
For sure. Yeah. We're not machines. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, so you get the idea. I just keep trucking along with what you're doing. If you've run out of problems, you redo like the problems with like recursion and stuff.
I'm redoing recursion actually.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. Stick with the EPI for now. We were gonna say stop rocking. We're at least until dynamic programming. But yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
I think the phone screen's tomorrow, like on lunchtime here, and that's it. Let's try.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hope for the best.
Yeah. Get some good sleep. Few pointers. Definitely try to make sure that you cover your ass on it. You don't have to be super esoteric like this. And the interviewer and be a little bit mindful. I would say be a little bit mindful about the time, but don't get sloppy. It's just like make sure if you're gonna speed up, make sure you're 100% certain your ass is covered.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a little bit tricky because we haven't practiced this as unfortunate timing, but I'd rather you be complete and cover your ass than to be like sloppy. So.
Yeah. Last time I remember. Last interview. Just to point it out to you, like the interviewer. The question was to create a base calculator.
Right.
Only. And he said, okay, how do you implement this? And I came up with a naive approach.
Right.
And he said, okay, now implement this, And I was doing, I guess, 3 or 2 passes. And he said, now think about a way how to do this with only 1 pass.
Yep.
And that was I didn't have like all we've been practicing during those days, like to analyze and but yeah, that was the rhythm of the interview.
Right. And so like I would say one of the things I know you spent a lot of time doing the naive stuff. I would say just state the naive stuff and just like run through it once or twice to get an idea, just to make sure they get the idea. Or at least you get the idea, and if they say, hey, yeah, I get it, it's like, oh, this is just for me to see if I can glean any insights, if this is inefficient. And just do 1 pass on that. That's probably, I think, the best strategy for you right now, just so we're not fucking up what we're doing in practice. But yeah, make sure, if they understand the naive solution, and you understand the naive solution, like, very, very well, then feel free to just like, jump straight to a little bit more to the optimal ones. In general, like, the whole step of, like, doing naive solution, just... You can probably verbalize it as long as you understand it in your own head and you understand where the blind spots and inefficiencies are. So that's basically my tip to you.
Talking about this thing of verbalize, do you think it's better to like write? I mean, of course the code, but write any idea just to be clear to the interview at some point. What do you think is more important?
For you, I would write it out. For you, I would write it out just to be safe. If it's like takes too long, like type out pseudocode definitely takes a long time. You don't need to do it. You can verbalize it. Unless you feel like the idea is a little bit complicated, then maybe write it. But in general, for you, I think maybe pseudocode. If you can do pseudocode fast, then probably it's not worth doing. But if it's like a little bit longer and complicated, like say like the overlapping elements, then maybe it's okay to do it. But make sure you just get the high level ideas down.
Okay. Generally, I do pseudocode when the idea is not totally clear. So I just want to abstract the complexity of the language, and but when it's very clear, I go straight to the code.
But be very careful. Make sure you've tested it.
Okay.
I don't want you to like jump to the code just because like, oh, I'm super confident, I'm cocky, I got this. Like, I want you to at least like do a spot check or 2 on it before if you're gonna do that.
For sure, test the idea.
Yeah.
It's one of our check marks here.
Yeah. Okay. Now.
Okay. I think that's it, man.
All right, sounds good. Good luck with your practice and good luck tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
All right, later.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. All right, so that was it. So we're gonna bring on R next. I think this is one that you guys have been waiting for to chat with him. But first, let me go get a drink and use the bathroom. So be back in a bit. All right, cool. All right, let's bring him on. Yo, hello? Hello? Oh, wait, you can't hear me? I'll call Zoom. Okay, wait, fuck. I fucked up, guys. I called him over Discord. Let me call him over Zoom.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Okay, let's see. Hey, yo, hello? I don't see a mic plugged in for you, dude.
Hey, but
Hey, what's up?
what's up? How you doing?
Hey, doing good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Still in like the ramping up stages. At work today. This week is like my third week at Google.
Gotcha. Yeah, congrats again on getting there, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, since you got the results, do you want to do face cam or do you still want to like hide your face and identity?
Yeah, I don't mind doing face cam. Do you want me to just turn on the video in Zoom or?
Yeah, sure. Because I think most people really want to see a name and a face to the results. But it's completely up to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Can you see me?
Yep, I can see you. Nice.
All right. Yeah. Whoever's watching the stream, hi everyone. It's basically me. Who went by the name Aw. That's been practicing with Edward in the past few months last year.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so good to finally put a name and a face to the results. So let's get started. So I guess to give everybody like kind of a rundown of your background information, years of experience, work history, and etc. and everything.
Yeah, sure. So before I started working with Edward, I was working at Meta on Facebook, and I think at the time when I contacted Edward, I think I had about a year of experience working at Meta, but I was just working as a contractor. Although like my work was no different from like full-time engineer, and that was basically my first job out of college. I did a 4-year bachelor's degree of computer science. I had two internships throughout my college career, but none of them were FANG internships. One of them was at a e-business company back in Malaysia, and then another one was in a cybersecurity company in San Francisco, but it was like a startup. And that's basically all the experience I had when I started working with Epic.
Okay, yeah, nice. So you basically had basically small jobs while you're working in college, and then you spent 1 year effectively contracted for Meta and Facebook.
Yeah, so I never had any like FTE experience, but the work I was doing at Meta was pretty much no different from FTE.
Got it. So, kind of, why did you want to switch from Meta to like Google and stuff?
Yeah, so the initial goal wasn't really to switch to Google specifically. It was more so to become an FTE. I think the original goal, like we were also trying to work towards Meta, but that didn't fall through. But yeah, the only reason I wanted to switch, I mean, to look for opportunities was because I didn't want to stay as a contractor. Even when I first landed the offer, I just took it because it was like pretty hard during COVID times, and I didn't come from UC Berkeley or Stanford or anything like that, so it was really hard getting interviews in the first place. So I just basically took like the first offer I got, and I knew in mind like this is not somewhere I want to be permanently, but it was a good place to be at for the meantime.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, hey, this is something. So I guess like the next one would be like, what led you to want to work with me? I think in the past we did like maybe one coaching session before.
So for people watching the stream, if you guys don't know, I actually did work with Everett at the very beginning when he first started taking on clients for free. But I think this was back in like early and mid 2020. And so we had that one coaching session, and then after that, I just kind of went on and continued practicing. But what continued to kind of persuade me to work with you was basically your evidence of success. Like I've watched your videos of like your other clients getting offers as well, and also I just been watching your videos on like the regular like advice on engineering in general, and I think that actually did help me at work as well, even though I was just contracting. And like I think the other thing that really pushed me to reach out to you was I had Amazon and Google recruiters reach out to me, and I was like, okay, it doesn't seem like I have enough time to prepare on my own. I really need someone to really like push me to go faster and quicker enough to go for these interviews, and yeah, I decided to reach out to you.
Nice. Did you try any other products or any other interviewing techniques or anything like that? Did you feel like they helped anyway? What you like, what you didn't like about them?
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I was pretty fortunate that I didn't really need to do any LeetCode to land both of the internships I did. So I didn't really know anything about like interview prep. Like I knew like almost nothing about interview prep when I first graduated. So I actually bought TechLead's Tech Interview Pro, which is basically where I met Everett, for those who don't know. I know a lot of people like may think negatively of that course, and it does have a lot of content that you could easily find online for free. But I think like for me at the time, it really did help me a lot because I really didn't know anything, and it kind of served as like a very centralized place for me to get all the information I need, and it didn't have any like system design content. I mean, not much out of the other than the basic stuff, but I didn't really need any advanced system design so for me at the time that was pretty much enough. But it wasn't enough for me to do good at I guess like LeetCode or coding interviews. It gave me an understanding, but it wasn't helpful enough for me to do well at them. And then I came across the Google Doc you wrote, like the version 1, and that helped me a lot. And we did that one coaching session. I continued to do grokking and LeetCode, but I was just basically practicing on my own until I got my first offer. But and then in between, I didn't really use any other interviewing products. I guess if you count system design, I did buy the Systems Expert from Clement, the same guy who does Algo Expert. So I used that for a bit for system design, but I didn't buy like the course for coding interviews.
Okay. So it seems like you just kind of like went around the industry, kind of sampled everything, but it was like just giving you the basics and information. It wasn't actually enough to execute on. So you came to me for the execution, and kind of you were on the time constraint as well. Okay.
So because I was, I think I was okay with like the own way I was practicing. I just wasn't disciplined enough to do enough practicing. So I really needed, you to really like put me in a good shape and on the right track.
Mm-hmm. So part of it is like the discipline, but other part is like how do I execute on it as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to move on to like the actual coaching of like what your impressions were and how you felt throughout the entire process. Did you feel I was like too tough? Did you feel I wasn't tough enough? Like what did you feel throughout the entire thing?
In terms of toughness, I think it was just right. I think if you were more lax, I probably wouldn't have done so well. But if you were more tough, I don't know how that would have been. I think it was fine for me. And personally, like I am pretty open to feedback. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you were like pretty rough in like 1 or 2 sessions, I was like pretty okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and the other thing, I guess, like I feel like it would have been more helpful if the coaching was more organized. Like there were definitely times where I felt it was kind of disorganized, and I think like towards the middle and the end it was fine. But also in the beginning, I feel like I know you mentioned. I know you always like explicitly tell us like what you wanted me to do and stuff like that. But I feel like certain things could have been emphasized a little more.
Okay.
For example, like when you told me to be like really like relentless on like my practice, and also like I really like need to like dive very deep into like each question. Like
Okay.
it makes sense, but I didn't really know like what you meant like literally until you showed me like the Google Doc from Pablo or someone else who wrote like the very detailed analysis on every question, and then that's when it kind of clicked. It's like, oh, that's what you meant when you say relentless. Because I guess I didn't really get like the clear picture of what you meant initially.
I see. Yeah, we're kind of running into the same problem here with the other guy. So yeah, I think I can definitely do better on that front. A lot of the concepts I do talk about tend to be a little bit abstract. And I think if I provide maybe more solid examples, I think that will definitely help. So it seems like the moment I provide those examples, it really clicked for you.
Yeah, and that was pretty much like when the whole pivot happened too. I think that's when I really started to see like the jump from not being able to solve a lot of questions to at least being able to solve them when given an infinite amount of time.
Okay, so you said like that turning point was probably like at what point do you think that started clicking for you? Like I think it was like week 4 or 5.
I would say it was a little later. I think it was like maybe week 5 or 6.
Okay.
It was like right after the vacation I went, if you remember.
I do remember that.
But I was basically like doing a lot of practice. But it didn't seem like I was making like a lot of improvements. Like I certainly felt like I was improving, but definitely not quick enough for the timelines that we had. But once I started doing the practice log and really like writing like pretty much essays on each question I did, that kind of drilled the routine into my brain. And after that, when I started doing questions, the process was pretty streamlined. Like I would automatically do all the steps I was doing, but except that I was able to do them a lot quicker, and that helped to solve questions as well. And yeah, just basically like being able to go through the steps quicker.
I think if I remember correctly, we also had a little bit of struggle with like the conceptualizing recursion to begin with as well, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I struggled a lot with, I think it was, let me see, I think it was, recursion was definitely one, because DP was something that I was really like not confident in. And then I forgot what was the other, it could have been stacks. Oh no, it was arrays. That was what, it was arrays. I remember struggling a lot with arrays.
Got it. Yeah, so I think if I maybe was a little bit more specific at the beginning instead of trying to hit the conceptual ideas, I think it would have been a lot easier. I can see why that would be an issue for people. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. And you also mentioned that you were like on the verge of burnout at some point.
Yeah, I think the burnout was definitely like around right after Amazon's onsite. I was a little burnt out, and then we kind of took like a week off, or like we didn't take it off entirely, but we kind of took it easy. And so when I did the Google interview, like I was pretty good in a pretty good shape. But after that, like it was the holidays and all that, and so didn't really have a lot of motivation for Uber.
Yeah. So that's probably like around week 8. I think you just started feeling it. So around week 6, we finally it start five six, like six, it started to click for you,
Yeah.
and then by then after week 7 and 8, it just like kind of burned out for you. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for the feedback. All right. So, and we did take it easy. I know Pablo and Vliet also ran into the same issues, but fortunately, I took what I did for them and then kind of tweaked it for you. Great.
Yeah.
So yeah, like speaking of Amazon, let's talk about like the interview experiences with each of them.
Yeah.
Like Amazon, Google, and Uber. So let's start with
Yeah.
Amazon. What do you feel like went right with them? What went wrong there? And like, what was the result?
Yeah, so when I did Amazon's online assessment, I think that was around I think it was like week 7 or so. But definitely I didn't feel like I was prepared enough for sure. And so like what helped me a lot was like going on LeetCode Discuss and really looking at the example online assessment questions, and because they pretty much reuse the same questions, and that helped me a lot because I knew at that time I wasn't prepared enough. But when it came to the on-site, I think I did fine on all of the questions. I think what really helped was also studying on like the leadership principles and being able to come up with solid examples. So I didn't really feel like I struggled a lot on the on-site. It was just more so like preparing for the online assessment that was a little stressful. But I would say Amazon was a pretty smooth experience. And the interviewing questions I got definitely were not like crazy, like out of the box kind of questions. They were mostly medium, if I remember. And they had like some 1 or 2 follow-ups with each of them, but none of it was like crazy.
Okay. Gotcha. So that was like the what's it called, the online assessment. And then at that point you were able to fly through it, I think. And then you got to the on-site. And this is like about week 8.
Yeah, because when I did the on-site, we were already at a point where I was comfortable doing coding questions, and I never really struggled with like public speaking or speaking in general. So like doing leadership principle studying was not a hard thing for me neither.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like the soft interviews you were completely fine with. It was the hard interviews that you were kind of, struggling with. So actually, do you think I think you did pretty well on each of the problems, actually, if I remember you correctly.
Yeah, and even though I like interviewed for like an L3 position, because I was doing pretty much alpha work and I was using alpha examples during like the leadership principles. I remember like when I was talking to like one of the managers when I was doing a team match, he mentioned that the feedback was that I am like pretty much like borderline alpha, except that I didn't have enough experience to be interviewing for L4, and he really wanted me to join. So that was like the feedback I got. It was pretty positive.
Yes, that's, and then you also, I think, for the interviews, I think you only did like maybe 1 or 2 mistakes actually, but it seemed like overall the feedback from that was actually really positive. I don't think they dinged you really hard on it either.
Yeah. Like I definitely feel like they weren't like very strict on me either. But yeah, I did make like 1 or 2 mistakes.
Okay. And even then, you still got like a pretty good offer from them. So we'll talk about the offer and numbers later. Let's move on to Google. I think what we did was we took the results from that and then rolled that into Google and tried to use that as feedback as well. So my question would be like, okay, what do you think went? The same thing. Like, what went well? What went wrong for Google?
Okay. So I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't actually tell you when I was doing the phone interview. Because it was pretty early on in our coaching, and so like I really didn't think I'd do that well. I actually thought I failed after doing the phone interview, and I didn't actually tell you that until like I got contacted by the recruiter like 2 weeks later, and she told me I passed, and I was like pretty surprised. So what didn't go that well is that I didn't think like I solved it optimally during the phone interview, but I definitely was confident that I presented like my thoughts and my thought process, and like I was still able to solve it. I just didn't think it was like the most optimal solution. I didn't bother to go dig at the question after neither. But that was pretty much the only part I feel like that didn't go that well for Google. I'm not trying to sound cocky, but like when I did the on-site, I was fairly comfortable with the questions. I guess what really helped too was I feel like I was kind of lucky with the questions I got. Because I'm pretty comfortable with doing tree questions, and out of like the 4 interviews I got, like 2 of them were about trees. One of them was array. That was the only interview that I didn't do as well. Didn't do that good in. But for the other ones, I felt pretty comfortable. the difficulties were definitely around medium, but if you combine the amount of follow-ups that they had, you could almost classify them as hard. But I was able to answer like most of the follow-ups. I think
Mhm.
one of the interviews I even like finished all of the follow-ups, and we still had like 20 minutes left, and so we ended the interview pretty early. So right after the on-site, I was like fairly confident, like I would pass or
Mhm.
like get enough positive feedback to go for the hiring committee.
Mhm.
But I would say like for Google, it was a pretty like smooth experience.
Okay. It was literally a walk in the park, fucking easy for you.
Yeah, yeah. Google was definitely yeah. Like going in though, like was very nerve wracking because
Uh-huh.
like I hear a lot of things about like Google interviews being like very hard and like they give like a lot of DP questions.
Mhm.
But I guess like I was pretty lucky in that sense that I didn't get any of those.
Mhm. Got it. Yeah. Some
Yeah.
places do DP questions, especially if the guy's having a bad day and wants to hurt you. But
Yeah, yeah,
otherwise,
yeah.
it sounds like it's like it went super well. Doesn't
Yeah.
sound like there were like I know so a lot of people get tripped up on the follow up questions. And I know we
Yeah.
spent a lot of time doing building on previous solutions. Do you feel like that
Yeah.
helped you there, or do you feel like it was just some other insights that helped?
I think that was a key thing that really helped me secure the offer from Google because I think like for Google interviews they were like the interviewers were really looking for like signals and
Mhm.
like your thought process and
Mhm.
so I remember specifically one of the interviews like I proposed like one solution and he was like okay is there like any other solutions you could think of and I remember like I think I proposed around like two like I think I ended up with like three solutions and then he like decided to like choose one and I had to like implement it and then one of the follow-ups was to implement the other idea that I proposed and then the follow-ups would just be questions built on like the solutions I built out so I think
Mhm.
like based on how we practice doing the follow-up questions was like kind of like pretty much like what I was practicing
Mhm.
so it was not hard doing the follow-up questions.
Right. It's like the inefficiencies that are there, and how do you get over
Yeah,
them?
yeah, and they would ask questions that you would ask too. So it was, I guess in that sense, it was like not surprising to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like everything that we talked about, just like kind of in practice, translated directly into what we actually did at Google.
yeah.
And were you able to like confirm? Do you know like the score that they gave you from the recruiter? Was it like all at bar, all like second high, like strong hires?
I mean, I tried asking the recruiter even after accepting the offer, but the recruiter didn't give me the insights, so I don't actually know.
No, it's like now that
But
you're in Google, I think maybe you could ask for that actually.
okay, maybe I don't know, but I'm guessing it was positive because I remember the recruiter like was able to gather all the feedback within 24 hours after my on-site,
Mm-hmm.
which was very surprising. And like after gathering the feedback, even though he wasn't sharing like the actual details with me, he did tell me that he was pretty confident that I would pass HC.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, that's really good. But I'm super curious about the score. It's like I'm still aiming for one client to get all perfect strong hires, and I've only gotten one person to like get there, except for one interview. One of them was just a hire. The rest were strong hires. So I really want that all strong hire, and I'm really hoping you got that.
Yeah, I don't know if I could find out, but I remember like accepting the offer and like asking him like, hey, now that I've already like accepted it, can you like tell me? And he still wouldn't budge on that.
All right. Well, I guess like I might message someone on HR later or something. But then we have the last one with Uber, and I remember saying that we were trying to go for an L4 on that, but that didn't go so hot. So yeah, can you walk us through like what happened there?
Yeah, so Uber's phone interview was after Google's on-site. If I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But since we have already been practicing enough, I didn't really prepare much for the phone interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did go through like the phone interview question in one of our like replay analysts
Mm-hmm.
video. Phone interview was fine. On-site coding interviews were fine as well. I think like one of the coding interviews I had like a hard question, but it was from the elite code list, so I did practice it. So I was able to solve that question pretty quickly, but then obviously he had follow-ups.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't really have a trouble doing the coding interviews. What didn't go that well was definitely the system design. I was pretty frustrated at myself because the question was on a topic that I have been practicing a lot on, but it's just that I didn't feel like I have enough time. Like I only had like 30 minutes to do the entire question, and I had a lot of like things that I wanted to talk about. but as you remember, like I had a problem with like the speed for doing like sim design questions.
Yep.
And also like we spent like I think 2 or 3 weeks doing product design interviews before we shift over to like classic system design. And so I didn't actually get a lot of practice on like classic system design. So obviously like, I just wasn't quick enough. But if given enough time, I feel like I could have done better. But the other thing too, like I pretty much I caught COVID like a few days before the Uber interview as well. So I was basically doing Uber's interview when I had COVID.
Yeah. Like I think that's still like despite like all those setbacks, you were still able to secure a pretty good offer and still pass the interview. So and even though we split our time between like different types of system designs because we were expecting Facebook to get back to you and want you, but that never came through. So despite like all those setbacks and all the hardships, we still managed to come out with some really good results.
Yeah. Like I was definitely like pretty surprised on like how things turned out. But I totally was not expecting like myself to get like Google's offer, let alone Amazon, because when I did Amazon's like interviews, like it was still like fairly early in my opinion at the time. And so I even had plans to get referrals for like Apple and Stripe because I know people who work there, but turns out I didn't have to use them.
Yeah, and I think at some point you mentioned to me earlier that you were you felt like you were really burnt out, but that the results from Amazon kind of fixed that or something, right?
Yeah, like it kind of proved me like, oh, like, you know, I think I could kind of keep going. And plus, like I mentioned like earlier, like I thought I failed the Google's like phone interview, but turned out I, you know, passed it. So that really helped as well mentally.
Right. Yeah, like it's really hard to like see like how far you're progressing once you're like in it, but then once you start getting the results, it's very encouraging. So,
yeah, definitely.
So I guess like if you don't mind, let's kind of like dive into the numbers of like the offers. So I start with Amazon. Like, what did they offer you, and did you feel it was like fair?
So the initial, do we need to go through initial, or can we just talk about the final offers?
Let's do the final offers. Because I think negotiations were like it was like basically mostly just throwing numbers between Amazon and Google. So yeah, just do the final numbers.
If I remember correctly, Amazon's final offer was let me see. Yeah, it was like a total of like 235K. So that was actually like pretty high, and like if you go on like levels.fyi, that's like pretty much like an outlier for SDE1. Plus like this was also before like the stock split, so I'm sure like it could be a lot higher now. And this was also before they announced like the 30% raise in base salaries. So at the time this was like a pretty good offer as well, and they had pretty good sign-on bonuses as well, and like the offer would stay at like 235 for 4 years, even if I don't get refreshers. So it was definitely a very tempting offer. Plus the teams I talked to seemed pretty good as well.
Yeah. So and did you feel like you clicked with the team? Did you feel like it wasn't like good enough? Like, well, what do you think happened? What happened there?
I don't think there was anything there that was bad. It was just that for Google, it gave me like basically like Google's offer was for the SRE org, and which is basically like where I want to be. Like I really want to work in like infotech, and that's basically what it is. So I think it was just more so on like the opportunity and not really about the compensation, because it wasn't really that far off from Google's offer.
Got it. Yeah, so I guess with that, let's kind of pivot to Google. What was the number that they offered you, and did you feel like it was fair or not?
Yeah, I think the final offer was at around like 260 or so, if you count like the annual bonus. But it definitely does drop after like year one. So I think like if you count like the total for 4 years, Google's offer might have been lower than Amazon's, because Amazon's is pretty like consistent throughout 4 years, because they have a pretty good sign-on bonus for year one and year two. But like opportunity-wise, I really wanted to work at Google.
So it's like, even though the initial salary for Google is like higher up front, you still would have made more on Amazon, but overall, like it was still relatively the same, I think, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but still, like 260 for Google at an L3 is pretty fucking amazing, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely is, because like I always hear that they lowball. So that was definitely pretty surprising as well.
Yeah, I was like expecting like 210, 220 at most. But because like you look at levels on FYI, you don't get to like anywhere near 250 unless you're a PhD. So
Yeah.
so
So yeah, I was pretty grateful for Google's offer as well.
yeah. So and it seems like everything also lined up for you too. It was an organization that you wanted to join and kind of stick with for the long run. And it offered a little bit more than Amazon in terms of like career growth. And then Uber, I guess, like for the sake of completeness, like what was their offer, and like did you feel that it was fair based on your performance?
Yeah, their final offer was 215. I don't know what the average is for Uber, but I guess like 215 is definitely okay. Um, I guess it could have been higher, like it could have been like way higher if I did well in the system design and got like an alpha offer.
Mm-hmm.
Like definitely like 215 was not a low offer. It was just lower compared to like the other two offers I had.
Mm-hmm.
But like offer wise, it was definitely like good enough. But in terms of work, like I wasn't like super interested to work in ads. Although like the manager I spoke to definitely seemed pretty enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's kind of interesting. It's like, yeah, I'm surprised they would want to stuff you into ads, actually. But then again, that's just my personal opinion, and I'm guessing that they kind of saw that the system design was weak, so they didn't want to give you like infrastructure work or any platform work either. But I totally understand where they're coming from. And considering, like you said, like the performance wasn't as great as the other ones, so that's kind of like why that happened. So I guess with that, let's actually move on to like some of the questions from the crowd. I think we've kind of answered like what the offers were, where and why you chose to stick with Google. Oh, by the way, how's the onboard process at Google?
Sorry, what was it?
How's the onboarding process? Did you feel like overwhelmed, or do you feel like it's right pace? Like how's that going?
Oh, I think the pace is definitely like I guess it's like they give you enough like a lot of time. And like FYI, like this is like my first like FTE onboarding process. But it definitely like feels pretty chill. When I started at Facebook, because I was a contractor, I actually didn't have the chance to go through boot camp. I was basically like thrown in a team, and I had to like basically like ramp up pretty quickly. But like I did fine there. So like over here, like I think like so far it's been okay. But it's definitely like the pace is definitely not fast, but I would say there's definitely a lot of things to learn. Considering that I'm working at SRE, I'm basically dealing with like configurations, a lot of tools, machines, and all that, and basically what we talk about in system design. So it's fun at the same time, and it's also kind of like intimidating.
Yeah, it's definitely drinking. Like any of these tech companies is drinking from a fire hose, no matter what organization you join, for like tooling and how everything works. But it seems like like you mentioned, like what we did in the system design practice, it seems like the way to think about these things, it kind of helps you here.
Yeah, it actually, that was the one thing I forgot to mention. I think like even though we didn't end up getting an alpha offer, like the practice we did definitely did not go to waste, because everything I do like at work now is going to be like related to what we learn in system design and what we talk about as well.
Do you feel like the methodologies that we kind of went over, like start simple, build more complex, and just kind of evaluating the problems the right way, do you feel like that's been helpful at work?
Yeah, I think it translates to like everything I do at work, even if it's just like a simple problem that I have to do. Like I definitely think it helps a lot.
Yeah, I think it will help a lot too, and I'm very curious to see like how you progress throughout like in 1 year or 2 years. I would not be surprised if you do this and you would get promoted to L4 in a year.
So far I not too worried about like the promotion. I'm just more like interested in like learning, because there's so many things to learn right now, being in the SRE org.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you're always going to be dealing with some infrastructure, some random problem that is like efficiency wise across the board subpar. So and there's always something new to deal with.
And it's just like crazy to me that I finally get to work on things that system design materials or like books talk about. Because like right now I am actually dealing with those, but like before that it would just be so abstract. It's like, oh yeah, I know about load balancers, and like I know what they do, and I know like what kind of practices and approaches you want to take, but like you don't actually work with them. But now I get to do that, and so it's definitely a dream come true.
Yeah, and like all your hard work you put in, I got you there. So, and it's good to hear that you're very happy about it and very excited about the future. I guess with that, let's actually turn to some questions from the crowd. The first one is, how did you maintain a high level of effort without really burning out?
Yeah, so try not to practice too much. As weird as that sound, I know like the schedule you gave me, it was like around like what 30 to 35 hours of practice.
Yep.
But I think I ended up doing more towards like 20,
Okay.
around 20. And some weeks I did 25, but it was definitely like I think on average it was more around like 20 hours.
Uh-huh.
But it was definitely like more like quality practice, if anything. And not just like mindlessly sitting at my desk and like practicing for hours on end. The other thing is like I really try to find a lot of activities to relax when I'm not practicing to make sure like I get to actually like rejuvenate myself and rest well. But I think the biggest factor was definitely the mental part because I was frustrated that I'm not an FTE, so I knew I had to make this move. So for me internally, I was like, I don't have a choice. Like I have to do this. So I guess that really helped. But I guess if I was in like a comfortable position, say I was like an FTE at like some company, I probably wouldn't have that much motivation.
That makes sense. So it's like you had like this internal pressure as well, but
I had like an internal like time limit, I guess you can say, because I knew for sure like I don't want to stay as a contractor for more than like 18 months. And like I knew like I really want to be at a FAANG company, or like it doesn't have to be FAANG, but like a company that I believe in as an FTE. So that internal pressure definitely pushed me a lot.
So it was like the self-motivation, but then also like being able to balance that out with some other activities. And I'm actually surprised, like 20 hours. Yeah, Valida said he did 15 hours a week. So,
I think it makes sense. I think 20 hours like a week is a lot if you practice it the right way.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I tell people is like you don't have to spend like 40, 50 hours a week necessarily. It's just 20 hours of good practice will get you there. Like one, which is like about
and like based on like the way we were like doing like the coaching sessions, like I think 20 hours like would well for me. I guess like for some people it could be a little more, a little less. But like for example like replay analysis, I would record myself doing it as well, and so I think 20 hours like would work out just fine for me.
Yeah. And I think my rule of thumb is like 100, but it sounds like to you it's like maybe 120, 140. But either way, and of course, like we lost a little bit of time trying to figure out how to be a little bit more diligent on the practice, and that's my bad. So definitely, if I could shorten that out, I think it would easily add up to like 100 hours. And that would be good enough.
Yeah, because I remember like the first 2 weeks, I was definitely trying to follow the schedule you set up. But then I was also running through questions a lot quicker than I should have. So definitely like first 2 weeks, even though I did put in the time, it didn't really feel like I was improving as much. But later on, like when I was able to streamline the way I practice, I was able to see progress a lot easier.
Yeah. And I will say like from my end, it's a little bit harder for me to like really give this example of being relentless that early on. Because I think people are like it's like if I gave that to you, you would have said, oh my god, that's so much work. And also I wouldn't have been sure from my end whether or not it would be appropriate for you. But it sounds like a lot of times, like you, Valid, Pavel, actually I don't think I have to show Valid that one, but I'm guessing that in the future what I can do is actually give that example and a little bit better structure for practice of like this is what I absolutely expect and for you to follow that recipe. So that's definitely something that would save you time.
I guess like some kind of like concrete examples and like some template whatever. I think those definitely would have helped. If anything, I think like first 1 or 2 weeks could be a little more relaxed on that, and then depending on like how things go, you could then say like, okay, this is probably what I want you to start following if you don't start making progress in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I can definitely shorten the time. I think if I remember right, I think for us it was like really trying to get the conceptual stuff down first. But yeah, like I can definitely do that in the future. I think it's a very good idea actually.
But I guess for me, I think one thing I do need to mention. I wouldn't say like this 2 or 3 weeks was a waste because I did have a problem with like thinking and like putting everything in my head. So that's one thing you really helped out a lot was like writing things out and like printing everything on like whichever IDE or like text pad I was using.
Right. Yeah, and of like if I had made you do the essays before, you maybe still had that bad habit of when it comes time to actually doing the actual interview. Is you say, oh, I'll just do it for homework and not do it in in the actual interview. So that probably helped there. I don't know. For me, it's always this back and forth between like what am I doing too much, am I doing too little, and it's always going to be there.
Yeah, I guess like they definitely could have they definitely were things that could have been better, but then again like if you did those from the start, like things would have turned out differently.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I guess it really depends on like case by case, and like who you're working with.
Yeah, and I'm
But
always
I
trying
think
to do
like in
better.
our case, we things kind of just worked out fine.
Yeah, I mean, all's well that ends well, right? I mean, I can
Yeah,
always do better
yeah,
too.
yeah, and I think like I guess like the first few weeks, even though I wasn't practicing as efficiently or like as effectively, I still put in the time. So I
Mhm.
guess like when the time came of like needing to do it, I had enough of like somewhat of practice to be able to actually execute it.
Mhm.
But if you told me to do it like from the beginning, I probably wouldn't have been able to.
Mhm. Yeah, and plus we spent a lot of time doing system design as well. So really, we just cut that in half. You would have been good for like, and still gotten the exact same results.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
going to the next question. Any words of wisdom for navigating the Google interview?
Yeah, I would say discussion, discussion, and discussion. Even though like coding interviews are definitely more one-sided, but I guess like what they really want to see is being able to talk through like your ideas, building a solution up, and really having like a good approach to the problems, and not just coming with like the perfect solution and not talking about like how you arrived at it, because that's basically how you would be able to. Because if you could do that to solve the initial question, then I think you probably wouldn't have an issue doing the follow ups.
Mm-hmm.
But if you memorize questions, you're probably gonna be dead at the follow up questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Because like again, they're trying to like poke holes, make sure you really understand what the heck you're doing.
Yeah, because they definitely asked a lot of questions, and like based on how the interviews went, I definitely feel like they didn't have like a standard like, oh, I'm just gonna ask this question, and if they can do it, it's fine. They definitely had like different scenarios based on like how things go.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely like think like the way we practice made it a lot easier for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's good that that translated. And I mean, I've gotten some weird questions myself as well. Sometimes these are hit or miss
Yeah,
because a lot of these times, as I understand it, Google encourages
yeah.
employees to really come up with their own questions.
Yeah, yeah. Like the array question, array interview, like I wasn't able to like answer like one or two of the follow-ups that well, but for the most part, I did okay enough
Mm-hmm.
to pass.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, you did it well enough that he passed you, right? So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so the next question: what were some of biggest challenges with coding interviews, and what were some of the key habits that I suggested that helped you overcome these challenges?
Yeah, if I have to boil it down to three things, it would first would be discipline. I feel like I wasn't doing that bad practicing by myself, but I just didn't have the discipline to put in the hours every week to really do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then having you putting out a plan and like keeping track of how I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and having that pressure of like knowing that you're gonna know how I'll be doing next week, definitely helped push me.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing that helped a lot was definitely in the beginning about like thinking out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing out like examples and like what my thought processes were, like what I think the blockers are at, what the inefficiencies are and all that. I was using Sublime, so I was writing everything out.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely helped at the coding interviews as well, because I think like you obviously want to talk about these things, but at the end of the interview, when they gonna submit it,
Mm-hmm.
your feedback, I guess like they may not remember everything you said, but if you wrote everything down, at least there's like some kind of evidence that
Mm-hmm.
you actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing was like you were very hard on like getting the approach right, and I guess like I had like these different pieces, but I didn't like put them together well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the coaching sessions we had definitely helped me to streamline the process.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the three things: discipline, thinking out loud, and streamlining
Mm-hmm.
the practice approach.
Gotcha. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Because there's a difference between like knowing a bunch of information and then being able to execute on it. And I spend a lot of time,
Yeah,
I think, helping you try and execute very, very well on these pieces of information.
yeah, yeah.
All right. I think we kind of talked about this, but just to make it like explicit, like during your coaching sessions, what was the epiphany that where everything started to click? And if so, when and how were you able to get it?
Yeah, I think it was definitely around like week 5, 6,
Mm-hmm.
or like even 7. If
Mm-hmm.
you go back to the videos we had,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was when I started doing the long analysis of
Mm-hmm.
like each question I do. I would basically write essays on like, oh, like how I did this and like how I decided to choose this solution and what were the inefficiencies, what could have been better, what were the blockers, and even if I didn't solve it or I did solve it, I would still write a lot of details in it. And then shortly after that, I kind of realized I was able to solve like a lot of questions if given like an infinite amount of time, and that's when I knew like, oh, okay, I could actually solve a lot of problems now. I just need to be able to do them a lot quicker. Obviously, there's still going to be questions that I won't be able to solve, but I think those would definitely be the outliers, if anything. And that's pretty much when I realized like, okay, I could probably get better at this. I just have to get quicker.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And it kind of lines up with what we're seeing right now. It's like there's a little bit more progress with my current client. With once I actually showed him these write-ups, and I think that's probably a good exercise for me going forward as well. And then someone asking, how long was your team matching phase?
I was pretty fortunate because this whole thing happened right before the holidays, and so the recruiter knew that we have to get things in because no one's going to be working during the holidays. I think I talked to 2 teams within the span of 1 week, and then basically just pick one of the teams. And my first team match call was like within a week after I got the feedback that the positive feedback, because I did the team matching before hiring committee.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's usually team matching actually gets pretty fast. Once the team says they like you, and then it's like, okay, and you'll know immediately if you like them too.
Yeah. I think like both teams were pretty good. Both teams are pretty similar in terms of what they worked on. So it was like pretty hard to pick, but yeah.
Okay. And then as the last question is, did you end up using a negotiation service like the ones on level.fyi?
No, fortunately. I guess because the offers were like, they weren't like pretty low. Like I think they were like good enough, and I think like having like 1 or 2 other offers in hand definitely helped a lot. And just like browsing on the internet for like free like negotiation email templates was enough for me. I didn't have to like negotiate too hard because I was like pretty happy with the offers.
Yeah, I mean like breaking the bans on levels.fyi, I think that's pretty good too.
Yeah, and I didn't want to like make things look ugly like if I were to negotiate like 3 or 4 times as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you had a lot of goodwill with these people. They wanted you, like they wanted them. They know they wanted you, and so it's like just be nice.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate. Like all 3 recruiters I worked with, they were all pretty nice. So I also didn't want to give them a hard time as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's always better to deal with someone who is very considerate of your situation and who has your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I think these are all the questions. Is there anything you want to say to the crowd? Anything you have wanted to get off your chest? Like a final message you want to give to people?
I guess I just want to say like everything felt pretty unreal until my first day at Google. In terms of like how things happen within a few months. But I remember thinking like I remember that very night when I reached out to you through email. I remember thinking to myself like, okay, do I want to reach out to Everett to do this long-term coaching thing? And I basically just asked myself one question: would I pay like 7% of my so 7% would be like what? Like maybe I guess like let's say like 20K. Would I pay 20K to get a job at Google? And my answer was like yes. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna reach out. And yeah, pretty happy with how things turned out.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I structure it that way. It's all or nothing for me too. It's like either you get your dream job and you get high amount, or it's like I don't get anything at all. So I don't know anyone else who does that, but I'm very happy that you felt that kind of incentive and what it meant for you too. You took that into consideration. You still went with me, and we made magic happen.
Yeah, and like the like them reaching out to me and like the timeline, I was like, yeah, it's definitely this or nothing. So I'm pretty glad how things turned out, and then definitely grateful for like the coaching sessions we did.
Yeah, man, and I'm very happy to see the results that you got. It blew me away too, and I'll run with that. Like, hey, this guy got COVID. He passed 100% of his interviews, and he broke all the bans on levels.fyi. What's your excuse? So, honestly, yeah. So I'm very happy about that. Do keep in touch. I'm very curious how your career progresses. Yeah, and I definitely love to hang out at some point, like in person, and grab a few beers.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in SF2, so yeah, we can follow up on that offline.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that's it. You gave final thoughts. I guess we'll stop the interview unless there's something else you want to say.
No, I don't really have anything else.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. Good luck at Google, and congratulations once again on all the offers.
All right, thanks, Evan.
All right,
See you
take
around.
care. Bye bye. All right. Okay, so that was it. Any final questions for the crowd? Oh, Gerald asked like, what was your sign-on bonus and what are the typical numbers? If you want, you can ping him in the Discord. I'm sorry, I kind of missed that. But yeah, if you ping him in the Discord, and then ask him like, hey, very directly, hey, what's your compensations and all that stuff. I think that he might be willing to share. I don't know. It's up to him. But overall, I think it's just like, yeah, just kind of like throw it out there, see if he responds. If there's any other questions about like what we talked about and me and coaching and anything else, holler it out, or I guess I'll see you next week because I'm not getting into the questions. Going once, going twice, 3 times. All right, man. I guess that's it. Thank you all for joining me. And we will be doing another coaching session this Saturday with M. Hopefully he makes a significant amount of progress, and hopefully we get some good news from the Facebook phone screen. So stick around for that. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you guys learned a little something. Congratulations again to Russell for getting the offer. And hopefully if any of you are out there looking to get coaching as well, you can book me for coaching at eChanTech.com. His videos are on YouTube. Yeah, his coaching sessions are on YouTube as well. I've organized them into a playlist, and I'll link them in the Discord. But if you look for coaching sessions with R, that's the title of the playlist that will be there for you to watch. So until Saturday, thank you all for and it'll be at 11 a.m. for the coaching session on Saturday. So until then, see you all later. Have a good night, and thank you all for joining me.